Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1. Transmigrating into a Warhammer man, 3 survival tips to be engraved into your DNA. First, loyalty is paramount, even the Emperor's sacred words cannot stop a laser beam. Second, the discipline of extreme warriors is so tough that even titanium alloys would scoff at it. Third, the ultimate strategy: if you can win, steal the enemy's base; if you can't, run away; if you can finish them off, don't complain. When Lynn fully grasped these 3 points on the plains of Volaris in the 30th millennium, he was wearing Ultramarines power armor and crouching in a trench changing the magazine of his explosive rifle. Authentic identity: Steel Heart, the 12th Ultramarines, the honor guard of Chapter Master Gabriel, the chapter's shield, and a symbol of loyalty. Actual profession: the warband leader's personal emergency rescuer, nicknamed the CEO of the Extreme Stretcher Team. Daily KPIs: leader charges, we charge; leader goes recklessly, we carry; leader falls, we quickly reposition and find cover. Speaking of which, he has to thank the thing that came with him from another time to get this honorable position, a dangerous job. A cheat system for someone who calls themselves a funny guy's survival system. From the moment he landed in this desolate universe, that thing had taken root in his mind. Every day it's either a danger warning or a rationalization patch for his outrageous actions. It relies on a 3-second pre-attack warning with floating bullet comments and a filter that rationalizes the behavior. He was an ordinary person who barely knew how to fight before he transmigrated, yet he managed to become a professional rescuer, no, a professional person carrier in the Order of Astartes. Just as he was wondering if the frontline mess hall would be serving ant cow canned food again tonight, the ground suddenly shook as if it were on vibrating mode. On the opposite Iron Dome civilization's position, laser beams rained down like a storm, the red and blue beams instantly eroding half of the trenches. The Iron Dome people are a group of human compatriots who refuse to submit to the Empire, and their technology tree is incredibly bizarre. Their pulse laser guns pierced through the armored monsters like paper. In less than half an hour, the frontline Smurfs were lying on the ground, and the battle was approaching the scenario of total annihilation. These traitorous bastards! Chapter Commander Gabriel stood by the trench, chainsaw axe in hand, sparks flying from his power armor, his face contorted with rage beneath his mask. The Empire bestowed upon them the glory of submission, yet they wash their faces with lasers. All troops, charge! Crush their lines! The think tank officer roared from the sidelines, Commander, think it over. The laser density on the other side is abnormal, it's clearly a decoy array. Unfortunately, the commander was already in a state of high-blooded fervor, leaping out of the trench and cleaving sparks with his axe. Traps are not in the dictionary of extreme warriors, follow me. Lynn immediately started playing the background music tent in her mind. He knew this tune well, the system always played it before the commander got into a frenzy. Sure enough, the warning message in my brain instantly flooded the screen. High energy prediction: laser density x3 in 10 seconds, hidden bunker 50 meters to the left front, energy barrier 30 meters to the right front. Captain, this is pure suicide mission. Lynn's lips twitched slightly. Here it comes again, daily task: drag the guild leader back from above. Sure enough, just as Gabriel had rushed a short distance, a semi-transparent energy wall rose from the ground with a hum, separating him from the rest of the team. The surrounding bunkers opened fire simultaneously, unleashing a barrage of laser beams at him. The commander swung his axe to block a few shots, but more lasers pierced through his power armor, shoulder armor, and thighs, blasting several holes in them, and his health bar visibly dropped. The commander is trapped. The brothers in the trenches were shouting anxiously, but the barriers blocked their way and the barrage of bullets restricted their movement, so they couldn't break through at all. Lynn gritted his teeth, pulled out 2 smoke grenades. You guys hold the line, I'll go get him. It wasn't that he suddenly became a saint, it's just that in the Warhammer world, getting carried away with passion only leads to two outcomes. First, they become a teaching case, negative example, for the Imperial Loyalty Academy. Second, they enter the subspace theme park to receive the Evil Gods Fun package. Moreover, the system interface has already popped up. Daily task: rescue the overconfident guild leader. Requirements: skillful maneuvering, and survival. Fun value greater than or equal to 300. Reward: 10 all-purpose band-aids, stock, 92, effect, stops bleeding wherever it occurs, so easy. That's right, he's collected so much of this stuff that it's almost enough to make 2 decks of cards, but with such a simple and effective treatment, who wouldn't want more? Fine, let's do it. He leaped out of the trench, his mind exploding with thoughts: 3 to the left, 2 to the right, 1 on top. Twist. Twist. Lynn's movements resembled a robotic dance. He practiced this dance move no less than 100 times. The laser grazed the edge of the armor and blasted a series of craters in the ground. But the barrage of bullets was too dense. 3 loud thuds followed, and I was hit in the chest, arm, and lower back, blood gushing out like fire hoses. The humorist's actions added to the comedic effect, staining the nearby rocks red. He remained unfazed, even taking a moment to wipe his face. This blood-splattering effect, next time, could you install a blood bag recycling device on armor? At least donate it to the blood bank. Fun value plus 40, from a teammate's dizzying reaction. Fun factor plus 50, from the collective bewilderment of the Iron Dome soldiers. Fun value plus 30, bonus for gory comedy effects. A system notification sounded. Lynn charged through the barrage of bullets to the barrier and took down the generator with 2 shots. The barrier disappeared. Just as Gabriel was about to shout good, Lynn swept him up in a princess carry and pulled him into her arms. The burly man, over 2 meters tall, was held steadily, his chainsaw axe still swinging aimlessly in the air. Lynn, put me down, I can still fight. The battalion commander roared in anger, his wound throbbing with pain, yet he couldn't break free. Commander, you are seriously wounded. Retreat is the best tactic at present. Lynn looked righteous, but his feet left after images as he ran, his mind still racing. Laser at right front, quickly use the commander to block it. Without a second thought, he moved Gabriel to the right. Pfft! The laser, originally aimed at his lower back, struck the commander's shoulder armor, creating another hole. Gabriel nearly spat blood onto his mask. You're using me as a shield. You have thick armor, you can take a beating. Lynn spoke with righteous indignation, not even looking down at the person in his arms. His feet moved even faster, and his left hand adjusted its position, turning Gabriel's back to face another wave of fire. The power armor there is reinforced with 3 layers of adamantite, making it a key protected area that the chapter's logistics department specially upgraded for the chapter leader. The commander in his arms trembled with rage, but could only watch helplessly as he transformed into a humanoid bulletproof armor. The Iron Dome soldiers on the other side were dumbfounded, and their firing rhythm slowed down by half a beat. They had seen the Astartes charge recklessly, fight to the death, and board their ships. But to carry a teammate while running away and use them as a mobile cover is truly an unprecedented path in tactical history. Fun value plus 80, Iron Dome soldiers collectively question their existence. Fun value plus 60, contribution for the leader's outburst of anger. Fun value plus 40, double fun triggered by clever actions. Lynn, carrying the commander, weaved through the laser rain, his body riddled with bullet holes and gushing blood like a human fountain, yet he ran faster than the green-skinned soldiers next door, managing to avoid another fatal wound. Just as he was about to jump back into the trench, the last laser beam came, and Lynn decisively lifted the commander high in front of him to shield him. Clang! The laser grazed the commander's helmet, sending sparks flying. The commander is back. Cheers erupted from the trenches as several hands reached out to meet them. Lynn put down the battalion commander, who was riddled with bullet holes and had a livid face, and moved aside himself. Blood was still oozing from the bullet holes, but he grinned and said, "Mission accomplished, Commander unharmed." Gabriel clutched his wound, Lynn's fingers trembling for a long time. If it weren't for seeing Lynn's own serious injuries and the fountain of blood gushing from his body during the rescue, although now those terrifying bullet holes are inexplicably reduced to shallow marks and bloodstains. He was almost certain that this kid had been plotting this for a long time, intending to send the current warband leader to his death ahead of time so that he could take his place. Gabriel couldn't help but blurt out, What kind of tactic is this?" Lynn immediately gave a standard salute. "Commander, this is a flexible withdrawal tactic, maximizing the use of existing resources, referring to your power armor, and minimizing our casualties. It perfectly complies with Article 3 of the Ultramarines Tactical Manual, adapt flexibly to changes in the battlefield." The surrounding soldiers stood in awe, and even the think tank officer nodded and sighed in agreement. Although the process was a bit abstract, the result was highly efficient. "Lynn, you're a true tactical genius." System com vibration. Daily task completed. Fun points plus 300, current total 1080. Reward, 10 all-purpose band-aids, inventory, 102. Lynn watched as the bullet holes in his body were automatically sealed with bandages, and the wounds healed in an instant, without feeling a ripple of emotion. "I'm used to it, it's all basic stuff." After all, in the Warhammer world, serving as an honor guard for the Ultramarines is as risky as live streaming from Chaos's home planet. Even Primarch Guilliman gets carried away when the time comes. What should we do? What if the person is seriously injured? Someone has to rush in and carry them out. The level of danger, it's downright suicidal. Therefore, learning how to survive is the essential skill a qualified Astartes should acquire. At least for Lynn, who transmigrated with a system, it was very practical. He had actually used this flexible tactic to rise from a greenhorn to become the shield of the battle group. Although the main function of this shield is to carry the guild leader and run away. But isn't living the greatest victory? Chapter 2. As chapter leader Gabriel was dragged away by the medics, he stubbornly kept muttering about charging in honor. But reality is harsh. The Iron Dome civilization's defense system is exceptionally robust, it simply cannot be breached. The battle lines remained deadlocked. If this keeps up, we might have to eat canned ant cow food for a whole year. Lynn crouched in the makeshift command bunker, looking at the enemy firing positions marked in red on the tactics board, and sighed inwardly. The honor guard originally consisted of 2 people, him and another guy named Lar. As a result, last time the commander recklessly charged into the greenskin position, Raoul was cut into pieces while covering the retreat. Yes, it's the kind of thing that can't be pieced back together. So, the profession of Astartes is as dangerous as throwing a streaking party in Nurgle's garden. Lynn thought to himself, personal honor? You can only earn honor by staying alive. He decided to call in more people. The Ultra Warriors may not have much else, but they have a lot of people. He was dialing the warband's internal communication channels like he was rushing to order takeout. "Hello? 12th Regiment, Ironheart Frontline Command. Yes, it's me again, Lynn. The commander is seriously injured, I'm temporarily filling in. What's the situation?" We're just outmatched, the enemy's lasers are like they're free. We need backup. Ideally 2 or 3 battle groups." "What? Not enough tactical priority? Then can we request primitive level strategic priority?" "I'm just kidding, don't hang up, beep." The communications soldier, listening nearby, nearly had his helmet fall off. "Sir, your tone is like adding salt to coffee. What do you know? This is called maximizing resource utilization." Lynn looked serious. "For the Empire, for the Emperor, we must survive, only by surviving can we continue to serve the Emperor. Today, the Emperor's Great Crusade is spreading humanity's glory to all corners of the galaxy, but several Primarchs remain scattered throughout the stars, never to be found. The entire expeditionary force remained on high alert. Therefore, Lynn never expected to receive much reinforcements from the beginning. In a stalemate where the enemy's strength is far outnumbered, the only option is to endure and wait. Weeks have passed. Just as the situation was about to freeze into a static picture of despair, a sudden tremor came from the ground. It wasn't artillery fire, nor an earthquake, but rather the solemn sound of some kind of machinery in operation. In the sky, a massive flagship, as large as a mobile fortress, slowly broke through the clouds, its blue and gold paint scheme radiating the majesty of the 500 worlds. The glory of Macardo. The Primarch. The communications soldier's voice trembled, "It's Lord Guilliman, he's come to the front lines." The trench erupted in cheers as all the still mobile Ultra warriors rose to their feet and saluted, their power armor joints creaking and popping. Lynn tilted his head back, his mouth unconsciously agape beneath the mask, creating an atmosphere of utterly unreal absurdity. He felt his mental processing was a bit overloaded. No. I just shook it randomly. According to the classic logic that wishes in Warhammer always come true in the most dangerous way, a few companies of reinforcements would be the best I could hope for. How did it just bring over the version's answer, the ruler of the 500 worlds? His inner monologue exploded instantly. Isn't this lineup a bit too luxurious? But what followed was an overwhelming joy, like someone who had survived a catastrophe. If the sky falls, the tall ones will hold it up. If you can't win a battle, the primal body will bail you out. Lynn internally exclaimed, "Great! I don't have to risk my life. With the Primarch here, won't this battle be a breeze?" Of course, on the surface, he maintained a loyal and composed expression as he joined the others in welcoming them. As Guilliman stepped off the transport ship, he exuded an imposing presence and commanded a powerful aura, followed closely by 4 members of the honor guard clad in magnificent blue and gold armor. He glanced at the battlefield, his gaze lingering on the tactics board for a moment, then at Gabriel, who was riddled with holes and still cursing in the medical pod, before finally settling on Lynn. "You are the one who executes the flexible evacuation tactic." The primitive's voice was calm. "I've seen the battle report. Although the method was unconventional, it was effective." Lynn quickly straightened his back, "It's all for the Emperor's service." In his mind, however, he was frantically sending out messages, "Don't pay attention to me, don't pay attention to me, I'm just an innocent stretcher bearer." Guilliman walked to the holographic sand table, lightly swiping his finger, his azure eyes reflecting countless flowing data galaxies. That was not a simple observation. Every energy fluctuation on the battlefield, every trajectory of fire, every subtle flicker of the shields. Along with the Iron Dome civilization's past tactical records, technology tree analysis reports, and even the geological structure and atmospheric disturbance models of Volaris, all poured into his Primarch-level superhuman mind. In the blink of an eye, countless attack plans, casualty estimates, resource consumption curves, technology acquisition possibilities, and strategic chain reactions were simultaneously modeled, simulated, and eliminated in his mental palace. His calculations were not merely cold, numerical piles, but rather a fusion of his own experience as a commander, a profound understanding of the Empire's technological system, and an insight into the nature of humanity and war. The adjutants only saw the Primarch silently gazing at the sand table, occasionally tapping his finger lightly in the air to bring up some obscure parameter chart. Unable to perceive the immense information storm brewing beneath that tranquil surface. The storm swept away the devastating costs of conventional offensives, bypassed the strategic passivity of prolonged sieges, and sifted through the feasibility of various surprise attack plans. Ultimately, an extremely subtle, regular pulse was extracted and amplified from the massive energy noise of the enemy's shield system. It is not a design flaw, but rather an inevitable harmonization cycle based on the civilization's unique energy technology, much like the inevitable relaxation after a heartbeat. The builders of the Iron Dome considered it a harmless, inherent characteristic, but in Guilliman's eyes, it was the only breathing space in the entire steel defense line, precise to the second. The optimal solution thus emerges. It was not the most glorious head-on crushing victory, nor the largest fleet battle, but a precise operation that achieved the greatest results with the least cost. A specific infiltration and paralysis operation carried out by specific personnel at a specific time, targeting a specific vulnerability. Guilliman made a decision instantly and said, "Their technology has unique advantages. Their pulsed laser energy utilization rate is 37% higher than the Empire's current standard, and their shield generation technology is also worth studying. Volaris must be incorporated into the 500 worlds. This is not only a strategic necessity, but also a technological one." He turned to Lynn. "The defenses are strong, but they have weaknesses. Their energy supply system experiences periodic fluctuations, with an 8-minute shield decay window every 5 hours. I need a small team to infiltrate the rear during that window of opportunity and cripple the main energy core." Lynn suddenly had a bad feeling. "You, Lynn?" Guilliman's gaze fell on him. "Your adaptability and tactical creativity make you well suited to command this infiltration mission. You will lead the squad, consisting of 30 soldiers, including 5 think tank support personnel. System notification, ding. Main quest: The Primarchs Appreciation, A Pitfall, has been released. Mission objective: lead a special team to infiltrate behind the Iron Dome defenses and disable the main energy core. Requirements: survival rate greater than or equal to 70%, fun factor greater than or equal to 500. Reward: undying strongman medal. When worn, all fatal attacks will automatically be deflected, commonly known as an invincibility cheat." Lynn was inwardly weeping. "I knew it, this system is afraid I won't be able to survive in the future." But outwardly, he immediately responded with the standard Ultra soldier's response, "Yes, sir. Mission accomplished." His tone was firm, his eyes resolute, as if he wasn't the one who had just mentally scrolled through a million "can I refuse" messages. Guilliman nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Get ready, the window of opportunity is in 5 hours. The radiance of Macardo will provide you with orbital cover." After the Primarch left, Lynn leaned back against the bunker wall and wiped away non-existent cold sweat. The veteran next to him patted him on the shoulder. "Impressive, Lynn, the Primarch personally called your name." Lynn forced a bright yet weary smile. "It's all for the Empire." In his mind, however, he was frantically calculating, 35 people, a 70% survival rate means only 10.5 people can die. System, you're a mathematical genius. Fun worth 500? Am I going to war or filming a Warhammer version of the Truman Show? But he had no choice. In the Warhammer world, being called out by the Primarch is tantamount to having fate grab you by the scruff of your neck. They called for reinforcements, but ended up with something even more exciting. That's probably what's known as Imperial humor. "All right," Lynn checked the bomb gun, then touched the all-purpose bandage in his pocket. "Anyway, with this, I won't bleed too much if I get hurt." He gazed at the Iron Dome civilization's defensive line, gleaming with a dangerous light in the distance, and smiled. "It's just going deep behind enemy lines, isn't it? It's not like we haven't been there before, although last time it was to rescue people, this time it's to bomb their base. But in short, they're all flexible tactics." Chapter 3. Lynn stood in front of the temporary maintenance area, looking at the 30 Ironheart veterans and 5 mages wearing think tank power armor. He quickly checked his equipment: a standard bomb gun, a power sword, 3 fragmentation grenades, 2 smoke grenades, 5 energy batteries, and a stack of universal bandages from his system inventory. Ptolemy, the think tank officer beside him, an old soldier with runes engraved all over the side of his helmet, was closing his eyes and sensing something when he suddenly spoke. "Captain, energy fluctuation cycle confirmed. The window will open precisely in 5 hours, lasting 6 minutes and 7 seconds. 6 minutes and 7 seconds. Lynn raised an eyebrow. The Primarch said 8 minutes. The Iron Dome's primary energy core shows signs of strengthening. Ptolemy opened his eyes, a chinook blue light flashing through his eyepieces, so our actual time may be shorter. Excellent, Lynn thought, like tap dancing on a warp rift, but you have to be on time. He clapped his hands, gathering everyone together. Listen, the mission is simple: sneak in, blow that thing up, and sneak out. The key point is... He brought up the holographic projection, displaying a structural diagram of the area behind the Iron Dome defense line. The energy shield's decay window may only last 6 minutes. Within this time, we need to traverse 3 automated defense arrays, avoid at least 20 patrols, and reach the dome heart building where the main energy core is located. A veteran frowned slightly. Captain, this sounds like sending them to their deaths. Lynn chimed in. Exactly, that's why we need some flexibility. He pointed to several marked points on the map. Ptolemy, you and your think tank team are here, here, and here, setting up chinook interference nodes to create false energy fluctuations and attract the enemy's attention. Harken, you take 10 men and create a disturbance in the second defensive zone, the bigger the better, but don't actually attack. This is a feint. The rest of you, follow me through this drainage pipe. Everyone looked toward the narrow passage he was pointing to, or more precisely, the abandoned sewage system of the Iron Dome city. Captain, a pharmacist named Virgil hesitated, the pipe is only 2.5 meters in diameter, and we're wearing power armor. Crawl sideways, Lynn said matter-of-factly. The power armor shoulder armor can be temporarily removed. I've already had the technical sergeant modify the clips. It takes 30 seconds to remove and 20 seconds to install. The scene was completely silent. Ptolemy pondered for a moment. This plan is indeed something I hadn't considered. That's right, Lynn nodded. The enemy wouldn't expect it either. Who would guard against a group of space marines crawling out of the sewers? That doesn't fit the stereotype of the Astartes' glorious charge. Fun factor +20, cognitive shock from teammates. A pleasant system notification tone sounded. Lynn chuckled inwardly, this is just the beginning. 4 hours later, 3 kilometers behind the Iron Dome, a hidden sewage outlet was found. Lynn was stuck in the middle of the pipe, his shoulder armor had been removed and strapped to his back, and the sides of his power armor were covered with an unidentified sticky substance. This tastes damn sour. He muttered to himself. A barrage of thoughts flashed through my mind at just the right moment. Turn right 15 meters ahead. 2 Iron Dome sentries are slacking off. It's recommended to deal with them quickly, otherwise a patrol will pass by in 30 seconds. He gestured behind him with several hand signals, which in Astartes' sign language meant get ready to fight, but don't make a sound. Rounding the bend, sure enough, 2 Iron Dome soldiers were leaning against the wall, holding devices that looked like data tablets, with flashing screens. Lynn squinted and saw that it was some kind of board game. Wow, slacking off at work is a universal culture. He slid out of the pipe silently, without even activating the energy field of the power sword, relying purely on brute force and angle. Asterisk thud. Thud asterisk. 2 precise piercings through the next junction. When the 2 sentries fell, their expressions remained focused on how to make this move. Fun value +15, the ultimate price for slacking off at work. The remaining team members filed out and reattached their shoulder armor. After surveying his surroundings, Ptolemy nodded, the jamming nodes are in effect, 3 camouflage alerts have appeared on the enemy's chinook detection network. What about Harken? The preset explosives have just detonated, and the second defensive zone is in complete chaos. Lynn glanced at the timer. Good, 40 minutes left in the window. Full speed ahead. The squad moved through the shadows of the buildings, their blue and gold power armor standing out starkly against the grey backdrop of Iron Dome City. But that's just the aesthetic of extreme warriors, they can't change it. Bullet screen warnings have become the best navigation. There's a sniper on the rooftop to the left, it's recommended to go through the garbage dump on the right. Watch your step. There's a hole underneath that floorboard, stepping on it will trigger a pressure alarm. A patrol team will be passing by the intersection ahead in 5 seconds. It is recommended to take cover in the nearby, decorative shop. Lynn's lips twitched, but he still led the team into the store. Inside the store, a group of Iron Dome civilians were browsing products around a holographic projection when suddenly they saw more than a dozen steel giants, each over 2 meters tall, crowd in, causing the shelves to collapse. 7 or 8 ordinary customers stood frozen in place, still holding their shopping data boards, their eyes wide open. Suddenly, a child with an iron dome pointed at Lynn and exclaimed, "Mommy, this armor is so cool." Fun value plus 40, a Space Marines unexpected shopping experience. Fun factor plus 30, the collective bewilderment of Iron Dome civilians. Lynn made a shushing gesture to the child, then grabbed a hat from the shelf and put it on top of the helmet as a disguise, though it was completely useless. "Ptolemy, handle this carefully," he whispered. The Primarch said this area will henceforth belong to the 500 worlds. The think tank official, Ptolemy, nodded, the chinook light behind his eyepiece flickering gently. He stepped forward, neither raising his sword nor chanting any offensive incantations, but simply raising his palm, from which a barely visible pale blue halo emanated. "Quiet!" He uttered a single word softly. The chinook energy spread, sweeping over every civilian. The Iron Dome people's eyes instantly lost focus, their expressions relaxed, and they fell into a semi-conscious state. They slowly turned back and continued browsing the product projection, their movements as natural as if they had only been spacing out for a few seconds. The child rubbed his eyes, pointed at Lynn, and said to his mother, "Mom, that blue statue is so cool." Mom nodded groggily, "The new sculpture, is it on sale?" Fun value plus 25, think tanks civilized law enforcement. Fun value plus 15, Iron Dome civilian chinook user experience. Lynn's lips twitched beneath the mask. He lowered his voice and said to Ptolemy, "What you just did was a combination of hazy memories and short-term hypnosis," the think tank official calmly replied, "We'll make them remember coming to shop today, but they won't recall the specific details, and they certainly won't remember us. The effect will naturally dissipate after 12 hours, with no side effects." "You're quite skilled at this." This was often used when taking over the New World during the Great Crusades, Ptolemy said calmly, "The Emperor's glory needs to be spread, but not by pointing mortars at the heads of civilians, unless they strike first." Virgil peeked out from behind the shelf and muttered, "I thought I was going to silence them." Lynn glanced at him. "Brother, we may be war machines, but we're not butchers. The Primarchs want dominion, not ruins, and besides," he pointed outside, "these people will be citizens of the Empire from now on. We might even have to issue them ID cards. It wouldn't hurt to build relationships beforehand." Fun value plus 20, the grassroots governance mindset of an extreme warrior. The patrol's footsteps passed by the door, the heavy sound of their iron boots fading into the distance. Ptolemy paused for a moment, then nodded, "Let's go." Lynn made a gesture, and the team slipped out of the store silently. Before leaving, he made sure to right the collapsed shelves and put away the fallen merchandise. The child with the iron dome turned back, his eyes hazy as he watched them leave, and whispered, "The blue sculpture, it moves." Mom yawned, "You must have seen wrong, honey. Check this out, the new holographic pet." The team slipped back into the shadows and continued toward their objective. Lynn whispered a summary over the communication channel, "Remember, from now on, if you encounter civilians, don't take action unless absolutely necessary. We are now a civilized force, we must maintain our composure. Someone stifled a laugh. Captain, you didn't mention the word class when you crawled out of the sewer. That was a tactical necessity, Lynn stated matter-of-factly. Now it's a public relations necessity. The Primarch's governance policies need to be implemented, understand? I understand, I understand. A barrage of thoughts flashed through my mind. Fun value +10, Imperial Civil Servants Self-Cultivation. Lynn was too lazy to complain, thinking that at least this mission wouldn't require writing a report about accidentally injuring civilians. Saving trouble is a good thing. The team continued forward, and 3 minutes later, they finally spotted their target building, the heart of the dome. It was a silver building with a pyramid-like structure, its surface rippling with energy. At the top, a huge crystal core is slowly rotating, emitting a dazzling blue light. The building is surrounded by an open plaza with no cover whatsoever. Lynn instinctively felt something was wrong, such an important building, and there wasn't even an automatic turret around it. It's too clean, so clean it's like a trap. Sure enough, a barrage of thoughts suddenly flooded my mind, and a red warning box flashed wildly. High energy warning, 24 shadow-type pulse mines have been buried beneath the surface of the square, with a trigger radius of 3 meters. They employ a combination of optical camouflage and energy concealment. Detection prompt, regular scan is ineffective, Sonic or high-precision phase scan required. Route analysis, the mines are laid out in a dynamic network. The only safe path needs to be calculated within the shield decay window. Current calculation completion rate, 0%, 10%. Lynn's heart skipped a beat. He raised his hand to signal the team to stop advancing, and everyone immediately crouched down in the shadows of the buildings at the edge of the square. Is there a problem? Ptolemy asked in a low voice, the runes on the think tank's power armor glowing faintly, clearly sensing something as well. Landmines, Lynn said succinctly, tapping the side of his helmet to share the rough distribution map provided by the bullet pattern onto the squad's tactical visors. Underground, pulse type, optical camouflage. Everyone looked at the empty square, then at the dense red markings displayed in the goggles. This. Virgil's Adam's apple bobbed. Captain, how could you? Ptolemy, verify this. Lynn didn't answer directly, but instead said to the think tank officer, use sonic scanning to check the energy flow on the Earth's surface, focusing on points of phase distortion. Ptolemy looked at Lynn but didn't ask any further questions. He knelt on one knee, his palm on the ground, his eyes behind the goggles completely engulfed in sonic blue light. A faint hum filled the air, it was the sound of sonic energy rubbing against the real world. A few seconds later, he abruptly pulled his hand back, his tone grave, he's right. 24 high-energy reaction points are arranged to form a dynamic kill net. They are completely undetectable by conventional scans, their energy signature blends almost seamlessly with the environment. All the team members gasped. If Lynn hadn't stopped them, they might have already stepped into that death square. Ptolemy turned to Lynn, his runic goggles pointed directly at him. How did you know? This level of disguise wasn't even detected by my pre-detection sonic abilities. Here comes the classic question and answer segment. Lynn's expression remained impassive beneath his mask. Having dealt with the Iron Dome people for so long, I've developed a bit of intuition. Intuition? Ptolemy clearly didn't believe it. Intuition can be accurate to 24 points? And even point out that it's pulse type with optical camouflage. That's called battlefield instinct, Lynn shrugged, his power armor joints clicking softly. You might not believe it, but back in the stretcher team, I often had to anticipate where explosions would happen, where collapses would occur, and where sniper shots would be fired. You saw it when I rescued the commander, I always managed to move before the laser beam hit. He paused, then added, perhaps it's a survival instinct forced upon us? After all, when it's a job to carry people, you can't afford to die first. Fun factor plus 30, talking nonsense with a straight face. Fun factor plus 25, teammates look at each other with disbelief. Ptolemy remained silent for a few seconds. Finally, he nodded slowly. During the Great Expedition, some warriors did indeed develop extraordinary battlefield intuition. But someone as precise as you is rare. Good luck. Lynn accepted the assessment readily, silently giving a thumbs up to the system's bullet screen warning in his mind. He looked back at the square. The comments had already calculated a preliminary safe path. A crooked, bizarre route that requires you to step on specific points at specific times. How long until the shield decay window arrives? 47 seconds, Ptolemy replied. Okay, Lynn said calmly, listen, when the window opens, the mine's sensing system will briefly malfunction due to the energy fluctuation, for about half a second. We need to avoid the blast radius of the landmine in those 0.5 seconds. That's impossible, a soldier blurted out. The reaction time to a landmine is only 0.5 seconds. 80 meters is indeed very short, but to dodge all the landmines in the path without taking damage, even a Primarch. I can, Lynn interrupted him, her tone frighteningly calm. The comments, my intuition has given me a clue. Follow in my footsteps, not a single step can be wrong. He marked several key points on his tactical goggles, here, and here, these 3 points are the nodes of the minefield. Someone has to step on them to trigger the edge effect and create a safe gap for those behind. Everyone looked at him with complicated expressions. Lynn knew what they were thinking, stepping on a landmine? Wasn't that just walking into a minefield? He grinned, though no one could see it. I'll handle the nodes, he said. I have experience. After all, people who have a magic band-aid can be so carefree. Ptolemy hesitated, then finally said only, your intuition tells you this. Yes, Lynn nodded, and also told me I was lucky today and shouldn't die. He stood up, his power armor gleaming faintly in the shadows. Prepare to charge. Chapter 4. Countdown begins. Across the plaza, the energy shield of the heart of the dome began to flicker, its decay window about to open. Lynn bowed, waiting for his opportunity. What I was really thinking was, this damn system, could it give me a 10-second warning next time? It's so exciting to always be pushing my limits. Friendly reminder from the comments, hey, excitement makes it fun. Lynn was speechless. Okay, let's get started. He growled, stay close to me. The instant his shield weakened, he shot out like an arrow released from a bow. The first step was to step on the edge of the third tile on the left. The landmine sensor lit up red, but the light went out due to the shield fluctuation. The second step involves leaping 3 meters into the air to dodge energy spikes that suddenly appear from the ground. As Lynn landed on his third step, a landmine on his right was triggered. Without thinking, he sidestepped it and rammed it with his shoulder. Boom! The explosion engulfed him. Shrapnel struck his power armor with a clanging sound, and several pieces pierced through the armor seams and embedded themselves in his flesh. Blood spurted out instantly, leaving a red trail behind him. Captain! Virgil exclaimed. But Lynn continued running forward, pulling a band-aid from his pocket as he ran, and slapping it on the wound. The bleeding stopped instantly, and the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Don't stop! He shouted without turning his head. The entire squad ran frantically after him, each step landing on the spot he had just stepped on. Lynn became a human minesweeper, triggering 3 mines in a row. Each time, he used the thickest part of his body to block them, bleeding profusely, applying band-aids, and continuing to run. To outsiders, this was nothing short of an epic display of heroism. A blood-soaked space marine clears a path with his own body, creating a lifeline for his comrades. Lynn's actual inner monologue was like this. Left shoulder ready to catch the explosion. Right thigh below. I'll leave the one in the abdomen to the guy behind me to cover, but no, I have to maintain my image, I'll do it myself. Fun factor plus 80, teammates' eyes welled up with tears. Fun value plus 60, this amount of bleeding defies physiology. 80 meters, 3.5 seconds, that's almost the limit for a Space Marine's sprint. Lynn was the first to smash open the alloy door of the heart of the dome. He was covered in blood, but his wounds had mostly healed. Only the numerous shrapnel holes on his power armor proved what had just happened. Virgil, casualties? No. No casualties. Virgil's voice trembled. Captain, you. I'm fine, Lynn wiped the undried blood from his helmet. Hurry, find the core. The window of opportunity has opened, and we have at most 6 minutes left. The building's interior is intricate and complex, but the bullet screen navigation is back online. Go straight for 50 meters, turn right and go down the stairs. The main control room is on the 6th floor. Be careful of the automatic turrets. It is recommended to use smoke grenades, then rush over and use your power sword to attack. Lynn did as instructed. So, over the next 3 minutes, the Iron Dome defenders witnessed the following scene. A blue-armored warrior, riddled with holes yet seemingly immortal, charged forward through a hail of bullets from an automated turret. His single-handed firing of the explosive gun was incredibly accurate, and each swing of his power sword precisely severed the turret's energy lines. His teammates behind him only needed to provide follow-up shots and plant the explosives. What is this person made of? An Iron Dome officer roared in the control room. He was hit by at least 20 pulse grenades, there was blood all over the place. How could he still fight? The adjutant said timidly, Sir, his bleeding seems to have stopped halfway through. This is not scientific. It's certainly unscientific, but it's very Warhammer-esque. Lynn kicked open the door to the main control room. Inside, 5 Iron Dome engineers were frantically operating the control console, attempting to restart the external defenses. Lynn raised his hand and fired several shots into the head, his movements clean and swift. Ptolemy, where to bomb? The think tank officer pointed to the 3-meter diameter energy conduit running through the center of the room, connecting the upper and lower floors. Cut it here, and the entire defense system will overload and collapse. How much explosives are needed? Standard thermal bombs, 3. Lynn pulled a bomb out of his backpack. He also took out the hat from the decoration shop and casually hung it on a corner of the control panel. Fun value plus 30, farewell souvenir. The alarm went off when the bomb was being planted. The enemy's main force has returned to defend, Virgil said, looking at the sensors. At least 200 men have surrounded the building. As expected, Lynn set the detonation time to 3 minutes, so our evacuation route is. He pointed to the ceiling. Everyone looked up and saw the ventilation ducts. Not again, someone wailed. Evacuate flexibly, friend. Lynn had already jumped up and dismantled the fence. Going back the way we came is a dead end. Go up to the roof, the primal force will come to meet you. The Primarch? How did he know about us? Because I secretly sent a message to the Radiance of Macardo before I left, Lynn blinked, though no one could see it through the mask. Upon mission success, bombard the area around the rooftops to create an evacuation window for us. The Primarch should understand what I mean. Ptolemy took a deep breath. You belong to Tactical Autonomy, Lynn said matter-of-factly. Which article in the manual was it again? Anyway, there's this one. 3 minutes later, the entire team climbed to the roof of the building. Below, the Iron Dome soldiers had already stormed into the building. In the distance, flames soared into the sky from the direction of the 2nd defensive zone, as Hakon's feint attack was going very well. Lynn glanced at the sky. It's time. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. A precise strike from orbit hit the plaza in front of the heart of the dome building, creating a crater 30 meters in diameter. The shockwave sent the newly assembled Iron Dome troops flying. Immediately afterwards, the roar of the transport ship grew louder as it approached. 4 Thunderhawk gunships belonging to the Ultramarines pierced through the clouds, their side cannons unleashing a hail of bullets to clear a safe zone for the rooftops. The hatch opened, and Lynn waved, "Retreat." Everyone boarded the plane, and at the last moment, a muffled explosion came from inside the building below. Rumble. The energy conduits were severed, and the excess energy surged wildly along the building's surface, causing the entire pyramid structure to collapse. Looking out of the transport ship's porthole, the Iron Dome's energy shield had vanished, the once impenetrable barrier reduced to nothingness. On the distant horizon, the main force of the Ultramarines began their advance. The blue-gold tide surged toward the Iron Dome position. Task completion rate exceeded. Survival rate 35 people, 3 killed, all during the early infiltration phase. Survival rate 91.4%, fun value plus 200. Fun factor 600 in total, exceeding the target. The system notifications rang out, but Lynn didn't have time to listen. He was busy applying bandages to the last few wounds on his body. To outsiders, it looked as if Lynn was injecting himself with battlefield first aid at an astonishing speed. He reached into the gaps in the damaged power armor, each time pulling out a small, blood-stained square. Then he slapped the spot where blood splattered, his movements as practiced as a machine oiler putting up labels on an assembly line. Pharmacist Virgil's eyes widened, his tactical goggles magnifying 3 times, and his voice trembled, "Captain! Captain, did you just give me the 7th injection of hemostatic solvent?" Article 12 of Chapter 3 of the Astartes Battlefield First Aid Regulations states that the maximum dose for a single mission is 3 injections, and that overdose carries the risk of blood clotting and reflux. Without looking up, Lynn slapped the last bandage into the bleeding hole on his outer thigh and casually replied, "Special model, highly effective with low side effects, specially formulated by a technical sergeant. Special treatment." Hans, the veteran next to Lynn, leaned closer, his helmet almost touching Lynn's wound. "This recovery speed, is it some new holy blood solvent developed on Mars? I heard that 1 injection of that stuff can buy half a Sentinel mech." "More or less." Lynn stood up, patted his nail, and the wound had already scabbed over. To outsiders, it appears that the medicine has taken effect. Without batting an eye, he fabricated a story. "The time before last, when I saved the commander, the medical officer saw my outstanding performance and secretly sponsored me with a few injections. Fun factor plus 25, a teammate's reasonable misunderstanding." As a think tank, Ptolemy was more perceptive. He felt that there had been a few unnatural, faint energy fluctuations on Lynn's body just now, but when he focused his attention and examined it closely, he found nothing. Ultimately, he attributed it to battlefield chinook interference, or Lynn was using some kind of high-end drug that he had never seen before. After all, the 500 worlds are so vast, and Macrag's technological capabilities are so advanced, who knows what valuable items the Primarch might have stored in his private apothecary vault. "Before your next mission," Ptolemy earnestly advised, "you can apply to the chapter for a formal allocation of this potion, its effects are astonishing." Lynn chuckled inwardly, but kept a serious expression. "It's already in the recommendation report, titled The Necessity of Equipping High-Risk Rescue Positions with Efficient Emergency Medical Resources, but the approval process, you know how it is." He made an infinite loop gesture. Everyone gave them a knowing look. Imperial paperwork was, in some ways, more tedious than a donkey pulling a millstone. Fun factor plus 15, a common complaint about bureaucracy. Virgil looked at Lynn's rapidly healing wounds, then at the still bleeding scrapes on his own arm, hesitated for a moment, and asked softly, "Captain, do you have any extra of your special concoction?" Lynn touched her chest. He still had plenty of band-aids, but they're invisible once applied, so he couldn't exactly pull them out and say, "Hey bro, want a cartoon band-aid? He patted Virgil heavily on the shoulder, his voice filled with regret. The last shot, brother. Next time, definitely next time. His expression and tone suggested he was genuinely heartbroken at being unable to share the precious medicine. Virgil's eyes welled up with tears. Captain, keep it for yourself, you need it more. Lynn nodded solemnly, and secretly breathed a sigh of relief as she turned away. In his mind, a line of text floated by. Excellent acting skills, I suggest switching careers to perform in the stage play The Soul of the Imperial Heir. Lynn simply ignored it. This system is getting increasingly sarcastic and unpredictable. This little incident was thus perfectly resolved. Finally, Ptolemy gave Lynn a deep look. Your tactics, though unconventional, are effective, and I will record them accurately in the battle report. No, Lynn waved his hand, just right. Utilize battlefield resources flexibly, bravely protect teammates, and successfully complete the mission. The Primarch likes that kind of wording. 3 hours later, on the plains of Volaris, the main Iron Dome position had been completely captured. Blue and gold flags flutter atop what was once the energy tower. Inside the temporary command center, Guilliman stood in front of the holographic sand table, listening to reports from various units. After the main energy core was paralyzed, the enemy's defense system collapsed, and our army broke through the last line of defense in just 2 hours. The tactical staff officer's tone was incredulous. The casualty rate was 65% lower than expected. Guilliman nodded, his gaze falling on Lynn's squad that had just entered. Everyone was injured. Apart from Lynn, although his power armor was tattered, there were surprisingly few obvious wounds on his exposed skin. Mission report, the Primarch said calmly. Ptolemy stepped forward and gave a detailed account of the infiltration, omitting the encounter at the decoration shop and the hat. However, it emphasized Lynn's heroic actions of protecting his teammates with his own body on numerous occasions and clearing a path for the team at great risk. After listening, Guilliman remained silent for a moment. Lynn. Yes, sir. Lynn straightened his back. Your squad achieved a survival rate of over 90%, exceeding mission objectives. You not only crippled the energy core but also disrupted the enemy's backup control system. The Primarch said slowly, according to the battle report, you personally endured at least 15 potentially fatal attacks during the operation. For the Empire. Lynn's standard response. My inner monologue, actually, it was 23 times. Thanks for the band-aid, YYDS. Guilliman walked up to him. The Primarch, over 3 meters tall, was much taller than Lynn, and his gaze was piercing. Your tactical style is unique. But undeniably, you've achieved results. The Primarch turned and announced to everyone, in light of Lynn's outstanding performance in this campaign, I have decided to transfer him from the Hearts of Iron chapter. Lynn's heart tightened. Was he going to be assigned to the first company, where the casualty rate was the highest? Effective immediately, Lynn will join the glory of Macardo as a member of my honor guard. A moment of silence fell, followed by bursts of applause and congratulations. Virgil patted Lynn on the shoulder forcefully. That's wonderful, Captain. This is the highest honor. Ptolemy nodded. You deserve it. Only Lynn herself froze instantly, her face beneath the mask. Honor guard? Primarchs, honor guard? A series of thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. Wait, isn't this job similar to a warband stretcher bearer? The only difference is that the target audience has changed from chapter masters to Primarchs. So I'm now the CEO of the Primarchs exclusive stretcher team. The KST line has been upgraded from the leader went all out, we'll carry them to the Primarch went all out, we'll carry them. Lord Guilliman, are you aware that you can get quite impulsive in certain timelines? Like that time you went toe-to-toe with Fuegan. Haven't I become a humanoid prototype safety device? This is hilarious. This is really hilarious. But outwardly, Lynn took a deep breath. put on his most loyal and moved expression, and knelt on one knee. "Thank you for your trust, sir. I will do everything in my power to protect your safety." Guilliman seemed pleased and personally helped him up. "Prepare yourself. You'll be returning with me to Macrach's glory in an hour. You have new duties, soldier." "Yes, sir." Lynn stood up, turned and walked out of the command center, his steps steady and his back resolute. Only after turning the corner and making sure no one was watching did he lean against the wall, slowly take off his helmet, and wipe his face. "System," he murmured, "are you still there? Hey there, congratulations on your promotion." "Congratulations my A." Lynn roared inwardly. "Primarch Honor Guard, do you know what that means?" "It means that if Guilliman gets carried away and charges into a sea of greenskins to go on a rampage, I'll have to be there. If he goes toe-to-toe with some Chaos Archdeacon, I'll have to be there to bail him out. If he..." The barrage warning will be upgraded. New feature, Primarch Behavior Prediction, predicts Primarch's reckless behavior 10 seconds in advance. Reward issued, the Undying Cockroach badge has been issued. Feel free to do whatever you want with it, it'll leave you half dead. Ah, that's not right, it should be immortal, no, it should be. Stop, stop, stop. While the system was still enthusiastically explaining, Lynn looked at the blue gold medal that had suddenly appeared in his hand with a dark expression, and quickly stopped. So this invincibility cheat is really using him as a human punching bag, huh? He paused for 3 seconds, then pinned the medal to his tattered power armor on his chest. "Fine," he sighed, "at least next time you're reckless when rescuing people, will you dare to be even more careless? The original stretcher team is fine, anyway, it's a good fit for my major." He put his helmet back on and walked toward the transport boat. In the distance, Guilliman was inspecting the occupied positions, his blue and gold figure looking incredibly majestic in the setting sun. Lynn watched that retreating figure and suddenly grinned. "But then again, serving as a stretcher bearer for the Primarchs, if I ever write a memoir, I'll title it My Years as a Humanoid Primarch Safety Device in Warhammer. Maybe, it'll be quite interesting." Fun value plus 100, the host has finally resigned himself to his fate. Fun value plus 200, Primary Stretcher Team CEO, Legendary Class unlocked. The system notification sounded cheerfully. Lynn boarded the transport ship, the hatch closed, and the engine roared to life. New responsibilities, new fun, a new, blood-soaked adventure is about to begin. Chapter 5. The Corridor of the Macarag's Glory. The walls are inlaid with blue and gold reliefs depicting the epic conquests of the 500 worlds. Lynn followed a victorious warrior clad in magnificent armor. The sound of footsteps in power armor echoed through the corridor, each step conveying a sense of utter panic. He was taken to a strategy room next to the bridge. The door slid open silently, and Guilliman stood with his back to him in front of the enormous star map. The meticulously crafted power armor gleamed with a cold metallic sheen under the dome lighting. The Primarch didn't even turn around, he simply said calmly, "Come in and close the door." Lynn did as she was told, standing ramrod straight, her mind already racing. Comment warning, this is a large-scale job interview. Please do not say dangerous lines such as "I'm actually from another world" or "the system made me do this." Suggested answer template, loyalty, efficiency, flexible tactics, in this order. Lynn, Guilliman turned, his gaze falling on him. "Before the Battle of Volaris, I had already reviewed your 12 years of service with the Ironhearts chapter." Lynn's Adam's apple bobbed beneath his mask. 12 years? He's only been here for 3.5 years, the remaining 8.5 years were all background stories automatically generated by the system's rationalization filter. The filter was so blatant that it even included training records, comrades' recollections, and even a heartfelt complaint he once wrote in the canteen because he thought the ant cow canned food was too awful. "A very interesting record," Guilliman said, walking to a long alloy table and swiping his finger in the air. A list of events appeared in a holographic projection. During basic training, you accidentally blew through 2 walls of the training ground during a demolition lesson. The report stated that there was an overly optimistic misunderstanding in the calculation of the explosive yield. Lynn. My inner monologue, that was the first time I tried using the safe breaching sticker provided by the system, and I put it on backwards. In your 7th year of service, during the suppression of a riot on Hatir, your tactical squad was surrounded. You suggested using grease cans from the mess hall to make makeshift incendiary bombs, luring the enemy into the drainage ditch and then setting them on fire. Battle report notes, although the odor caused the ship's air purification system to overload for the next 3 days, the threat was effectively eliminated. Lynn, for the sake of the Empire, every resource should be used to its maximum potential. My inner thoughts, that was a video I watched on Bilibili about using Molotov cocktails in a makeshift way. I never imagined it would work in the Warhammer world. In the last 3 years, since you transferred to the Honor Guard, or rather, the Chapter Shield, Guilliman's gaze lingered on his face. Casualty rate data shows that in the 19 high-risk rescue missions you participated in, the survival rate of the rescued targets was 100%, and your personal record of being seriously injured but not killed in action is 19 times. The room was quiet for a moment. Lynn felt sweat trickling down the lining of his power armor. Here comes the ultimate question, why do you always survive serious injuries? Guilliman nodded slightly, I've read the medical medic's report. You have at least 4 old wounds that could theoretically be fatal, but they've all healed miraculously and haven't affected your combat capabilities. Macardo's biotechnology department is very interested in this. Lynn screamed inwardly, don't be interested, boss. That's all just a cheap band-aid solution. Don't be nervous, the Primarch seemed to notice his stiffness, even though Lynn thought he was standing as steady as a flagpole. During the Great Expedition, some warriors will always display qualities that transcend the ordinary. Perhaps it's a potential within our bloodline, or perhaps... He paused, his eyes, capable of seeing through tactical flaws, fixed on Lynn, just pure luck, and enough clever survival skills. Lynn quickly replied, I was merely fulfilling my duty, sir. The code of loyalty, the discipline of the Ultramarines, A&D. Guilliman's finger tapped the last record on the holographic projection. I saw your operational summary in the battle report regarding your self-created theory of flexible tactics, maximize the use of existing resources, minimize unnecessary risks, and flexibly adjust methods while ensuring mission objectives are achieved. The Primarch surprisingly revealed a very faint, almost appreciative expression, this aligns well with Macardo's philosophy of governance. Efficiency, adaptability, sustainability pure, brute force cannot establish lasting dominance. Lynn breathed a sigh of relief. That was close. It seems the system's rationalization filter packaged everything as creative tactical thinking, rather than how can this guy always use the commander as a shield and still survive. That's why I transferred you to the ever-victorious army, Guilliman said, turning and walking back to the star map. De la Cruz will guide you through your new responsibilities. Your previous rescue experience might find broader applications here. System notification, ding. Primarch's affinity +10. Note, Primarch's assessment of you, a creative, efficient, and exceptionally resilient warrior. Although your behavior patterns are occasionally unconventional, the results are commendable. Additional note, Guilliman seems to have categorized you as a pragmatic variant of the extreme warrior. Congratulations, your character is set. Lynn inwardly wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, thank you for your trust, sir. Go, Guilliman said without turning around, his gaze already fixed on a flickering coordinate on the star map. De la Cruz is waiting for you on the first training deck. First training deck. When Lynn walked in, 13 warriors clad in blue-gold precision-engineered power armor were standing in a training formation. Their armor was decorated with honor sashes, battle medals, and some runes that Lynn didn't quite understand but that seemed very powerful. Standing at the front of the formation was a warrior who was half a head taller than the others. His shoulder armor was engraved with the insignia of the ever-victorious army. The radiance of Macardo and the crossed power swords, a deep scratch on the side of the helmet, as if grazed by the claws of some giant creature. Lynn, the soldier's voice came through his helmet, deep and authoritative. I am Ernesto de la Cruz, commander of the Invincible Army. Lord Guilliman has informed me of your transfer. Lynn saluted, Sir. De la Cruz returned the salute, then gestured for the other soldiers to continue training. He led Lynn to the observation deck at the edge of the deck, from where they could overlook the entire training ground. Soldiers are conducting squad raid drills in simulated city ruins. The ever-victorious army, de la Cruz began, his tone brimming with undisguised pride, was personally founded by Lord Guilliman, and its members are selected from the entire Ultramarines Legion. We are not only the Primarchs' protectors, but also the testing ground for Legion tactics, the elite of the elite. Lynn nodded vigorously, his inner monologue. Got it, it's a super special forces unit, the kind directly under the Primarch. The Invincible Army currently has 13 members, Delacus continued. Originally there were 27. He paused, his voice devoid of emotion, but Lynn could sense the weight of the situation. During the Great Expedition, the enemies we faced, sometimes exceeded the scope of the norm. Special weapons from alien civilizations, the mind-distorting effects of heretical witchcraft, and even threats not recorded in the Imperial archives. Death is the price of this glory. Lynn silently calculated, 27 minus 13 equals 14, resulting in a 51.8% casualty rate. Good heavens, more than half of the people are gone. De la Cruz turned to him, your addition brings the undefeated army back to 14. Lord Guilliman highly values your adaptability and unique tactical perspective. I hope you can bring new energy to this team and win more honors for the Emperor and Lord Guilliman. He spoke with great passion, his eyes burning like flames. Lynn outwardly appeared loyal to the death, but inwardly he was furiously complaining. The new vitality? Does it refer to my tactical style of running away when I can't win, and resorting to underhanded tactics when I can't run away? Honor? Sir, my previous honors mainly came from successfully carrying our superiors back to the trenches without dying. A 51.8% casualty rate. This isn't even a high-risk profession anymore. Is it like they're randomly selecting who will fill out the next casualty report? System, is it too late for me to resign and return to the Iron Hearts as a stretcher bearer? System reply, Dear customer, the contract has been signed. The penalty for breach of contract is the original's disappointment. We suggest you don't try it. De la Cruz seemed pleased with Lynn's resolute expression and patted his shoulder armor. You will undergo 5 days of acclimatization training here, familiarizing yourself with the equipment, communication protocols, and tactical coordination standards of the victorious army. Then, he brought up a dashboard that displayed a new task briefing. Chapter 6. We will accompany Lord Guilliman to the campaign in Carcassonne. It was a stubborn fortress world, with technology comparable to Volaris, but with deeper defenses and a stronger will to resist. Lynn took the data panel and quickly browsed through it. Carcassonne, an Earth-like planet on the edge of the 4th sector, has a colony history of over 1,000 years and possesses a complete orbital defense system and planetary shields. The Empire had already sent a wave of diplomatic envoys, but the other side riddled the envoy ships with bullets. This campaign, de la Cruz added, was under the full command of Lord Guilliman. But the Emperor's will is to end this stalemate as soon as possible, therefore, the First Legion will also participate in the battle. Lynn's expression stiffened slightly. First Legion, Dark Angels. Those stereotypes almost subconsciously popped into his mind. Mysterious and secluded, with several people always disappearing after the war, always talking about internal affairs. Their original form, the Lion King, Leon L. Johnson. He's supposedly a tactical genius, but his personality. Well, to put it simply, it means full of pretentious talk but with zero desire to communicate. Lynn blinked, and the fragments of her memory slowly pieced together. Lord Leon will not be directly commanding this battle, de la Cruz clearly sensed his hesitation. He has other matters to attend to. The Dark Angels will send troops from Terra to cooperate with our operations. But Lord Guilliman cautioned that when cooperating with the First Legion, one must be aware, their style of operation may differ from ours. That's a very tactful way of putting it. Lynn's inner monologue, it's like those people might suddenly abandon the front lines and run off to chase some important target. Or the whole team might suddenly go invisible during the battle, and by the time you realize it, they've already destroyed the enemy command post without offering a single explanation. In short, de la Cruz concluded, be prepared. In 5 days, we will leap towards Carcassonne. For the next 5 days, Lynn lived like a hamster stuffed into a high-speed centrifuge. The adaptive training of the ever-victorious army is basically a replica of hellish difficulty. The Seiko power armor is 15% heavier than the standard model, but its maneuverability is actually improved. The trade-off is that the torque needs to be readjusted for each movement. The newly issued bomb guns are custom-made models with recoil strong enough to dislocate the wrists of ordinary Astartes, but with such high accuracy that they can hit an enemy's helmet vent from 500 meters away. The melee weapons now include a powered short sword, supposedly for extremely close quarters combat. Lynn tried swinging it and almost cleaved the training dummy and the wall behind it together. The authentication process is so cumbersome it's outrageous. For the genetic code entry, they drew several vials of his blood. The neural interface synchronization felt like someone was pricking his brain with a needle. With access to the tactical data link granted, he can now see battlefield intelligence at the level of the ever-victorious army on the intranet, including some red files marked as requiring Primarch authorization. Even his new helmet is equipped with an advanced tactical analysis interface that can display teammates' status, ammunition levels, and even predict enemy fire density in real time. Although it was at least 2 seconds slower than the system's bullet screen warning, it was already at the pinnacle of the Empire's black technology. On the afternoon of the 5th day, Lynn finally passed the last test. In the simulated city of Carcassonne, lead a 4-person squad through an automated defense and successfully eliminate the guards at the objective point. Ernesto de la Cruz, observing from the observation room, commented, "Tactical choice, atypical, but effective. You seem particularly adept at creating chaos using the environment and finding a breakthrough path during the enemy's reaction gaps." Lynn's inner thoughts, that's called slick movement, specifically targeting enemy skill cooldowns, a basic online game mechanic. However, de la Cruz changed the subject, you seem to rely too much on individual breakthroughs, and there's room for improvement in your teamwork. The battles of an ever-victorious army are a precise meshing of gears, not a solo performance. Lynn stood at attention, "Yes, sir. I will strengthen teamwork training." Inner monologue, "But it's easier for me to use a band-aid if I'm alone." The training had just ended when the ship's public address system announced, "Attention all personnel, we are entering a subspace jump procedure in 1 hour. Target coordinates, Carcassonne system. Repeat, jump after 1 hour. All members of the ever-victorious army, please proceed immediately to the second assembly area for the final mission briefing." Lynn checked his equipment as he ran towards the assembly area. The new power armor is functioning normally, the bomb gun is fully loaded, the power sword is fully charged, and there's a stack of all-purpose bandages in my pocket. There are still 98 cards left, enough for a while. The undying cockroach badge was pinned to his chest, its blue-gold hue subtly reflecting the corridor lights. Inside the assembly area, besides the 13 comrades from the ever-victorious army, there were several soldiers wearing different types of power armor. Dark Angel. Lynn noticed that the armor of the 5 warriors could be divided into 2 completely different styles. 3 of them wore dark green armor, the surface of which was covered with reliefs and ribbon patterns in the style of Caliban culture, and the winged sword emblem on the shoulder armor was particularly eye-catching. The other two wore matte black armor, with the 1st Army Corps number marked in white Roman numeral on their right shoulders and white company badges and tactical symbols on their left shoulders. They stood ramrod straight, solemnly silent, even the angle at which their helmets turned was perfectly synchronized. It is understood that they are here as liaisons and coordinators for this joint operation. Lynn could sense that even the victorious army's brothers were somewhat uneasy. An atmosphere of "we know you guys are awesome, but can you please stop acting so mysterious," permeated the air. De la Cruz stood in front of the holographic projection and began his presentation. A holographic image unfolds in the center of the cabin, showing a reddish-brown planet slowly rotating, its surface covered by a network of defensive fortifications. Carcassel, a fortress world completely locked down by a double-ringed defensive line. Ernesto de la Cruz's voice was clear and cold. As he spoke, the image rapidly zoomed in, focusing on the chilling defense system on the planet's surface. As you can see, more than 50 heavily armed towers stand on its surface, serving as strongholds for firepower. The real core is the inner and outer main city walls. The image outlines two magnificent yet menacing ring-shaped contours. Both the exterior and interior walls are constructed from cast magma and forged from high-density alloys, with the foundation thickness exceeding 100 meters. Key areas are further reinforced with multiple layers. Between the city walls, what might have been natural ditches or dried-up ancient moats have been completely transformed into deadly trenches filled with automated bunkers and crossfire points. The images were further refined to show the cross-section of the surface fortifications and the simulation of fire coverage. It can be said that every inch of this world has undergone precise calculations and reinforcement using the principles of war engineering. De la Cruz paused briefly, allowing everyone to process the impression of this impregnable defense, before changing his tone. Therefore, Lord Guilliman's tactics are not a direct assault. Over the past month, the fleet has imposed a tight orbital blockade on the world, completely cutting off its external supplies and communications. The core tactic is to deplete the defenders' resources and will through sustained logistical pressure and psychological deterrence. Our primary task is to coordinate with the main fleet to gradually eliminate the outer orbital defense platforms and some secondary nodes on the surface, thereby weakening its overall defense network. Once cracks appear in its outer shell, the true hammer, the armored clusters personally commanded by the Primarch, will launch a decisive breakthrough against the inner core region. The brothers of the 1st Army Corps will be responsible for the breakthrough on the eastern flank. As Lynn listened, he used the tactical interface on his new helmet to record key information. This deployment sounds very much like Guilliman's style, calm, methodical, focused on logistics and the big picture, grinding down the enemy with pressure before delivering a precise and powerful blow. It's just unknown how long this crushing battle will take against such a tortoise-shell-like defense, and what the cost will be. As the briefing concluded, a 1st Legion soldier, bearing the captain's insignia on his shoulder armor, approached de la Cruz, and the two exchanged a few words in hushed tones. Lynn vaguely heard words like specific target, recovery mission, and not affecting the main battlefront. Really? The 1st Legion always has its own little script. When Ernesto de la Cruz returned, his expression was somewhat complicated. The brothers from the 1st Army Corps indicated that they might execute independent tactical maneuvers during the campaign, and requested that we not follow them in case of unforeseen circumstances, but simply maintain stability on the main battle line. Someone in the ever-victorious army muttered under their breath, "It's happening again." Lynn's mind was already flooded with a long barrage of comments. "Got it, they might suddenly disappear to do side jobs, and we need to cover for them." Warhammer version, "I'm going to steal a tower, are you guys going to team up?" Teaming up with this group of riddle solvers is a terrible gaming experience. JPG. The announcement came over the loudspeaker again, 10 minutes until the warp jump. All personnel, proceed to your designated positions. Lynn followed the group toward the jump pod and lay down in the coffin-like cradle. He glanced at the ceiling one last time before the hatch slowly closed. Carcassol. Another tough nut to crack. But when he touched the metal on his chest, he suddenly felt, not so panicked after all. Let's just consider this a trial run for the new version. He closed his eyes, and the hatch closed completely. The low growl of the subspace engines echoed throughout the entire warship. Reality was torn apart, and bizarre colors flooded the observation windows of the bridge. Chapter 7. The feeling of warp jumps, to use a popular internet phrase from before Lynn's time travel, is like being stuffed into a washing machine while someone stares at your eyes with a kaleidoscope. Multicolored, illogical streaks of light twisted and spun outside the observation window, occasionally flashing past blurry faces. Some resemble humans, while others absolutely do not belong to the aesthetic category of any known species. If this were the 40K era, Lynn thought to himself, leaning against the fixed pod and looking out at the bizarre scene through the small observation window of the hatch. These warp landscapes probably deserve to be accompanied by Nurgle's Plague Dance, Tsianch's Riddler broadcast, Kern's death metal, and Slaanisha's, well, R-rated music videos. Luckily, it's 30K now. He silently gave thanks to this era. The Emperor has not yet sat on the golden toilet, although preparations have begun. The human empire was at its zenith, while the 4 Chaos minions were still deep in the warp, preparing their ultimate attack, occasionally sending out a few low-level demons to make a cameo appearance. While warp travel still drains your sanity, at least you won't suddenly have a Kern vampire peeking out the window and making a throat-slitting gesture at you. But then again, Lynn said, staring at a particularly distorted spiral of light outside the window, those evil gods are probably already up to something. The Horus Rebellion, how many years has it been? I can't remember, but it's definitely not now. So it's relatively safe for now, as long as you don't impulsively touch any ancient ruins, don't believe whispers that I can make you stronger, and don't make wishes upon warp storms. System comment, you're very safety conscious. Reward, +5 fun points, system satisfaction. Lynn remained silent to indicate that he had nothing to say. Just as he was wondering if the time spent in the warp would be enough to memorize the Imperial Tactical Code for the 10th time, a dull tremor suddenly came from the ship. The distorted, flowing light outside the window began to shrink and flatten, gradually being replaced by the deep starry sky. A grayish-blue planet appeared in the center of the field of view, surrounded by 2 layers of orbital rings that were clearly man-made structures. Carcassol. Subspace jump completed. Target system reached. The bridge broadcast announced. All combat personnel are to be released from restraint. A pre-battle briefing will be held in 1 hour. Members of the ever-victorious army, please proceed to the second briefing room. Lynn pushed open the hatch and climbed out, stretching his somewhat stiff joints. Other ever-victorious army soldiers around them also got up one after another. Not far away, the 1st Legion liaison officers had already assembled and were exchanging words in hushed tones. The lead soldier, the one with several silver markings on his shoulder armor, was rapidly sliding his finger across the tactical data panel, seemingly comparing some information. He would occasionally glance up at the Ultra Warriors gathering, his gaze lingering briefly on their equipment and formation, the scrutiny in his eyes quite evident. After nodding to De La Cruz, he led his team toward the evacuation route. Their transport ships have already docked, and they clearly intend to return to the 1st Legion's main fleet as soon as possible. They run really fast, a voice rang out beside Lynn, like they're afraid we'll ask them a few more questions. Lynn turned his head and saw a victorious soldier inspecting a bomb gun while grimacing. His helmet was marked with tiny engravings on the side, so many that Lynn couldn't count them all. Who are you? Fabian, the warrior extended his hand, the power armor glove gripping it firmly. Fabian Cortez. I heard you're newly transferred here, the founder of Flexible Tactics. Lynn shook his hand. Lynn, I wouldn't call it tactics, just some little survival tips. Survival skills are a valuable asset in the victorious army, Fabian chuckled, his expression hidden behind his mask, but his tone was relaxed. Let's talk on the way to the briefing room. I know a shortcut that will avoid those taciturn fellows. The silent gourd he mentioned was clearly referring to the departing Dark Angel. The two walked along a side passage. Fabian was indeed very familiar with the internal structure of the Makurug's glory. After several twists and turns, they managed to avoid the large number of extreme warriors gathering on the main passage. You don't seem to like those guys very much. Lynn asked tentatively. It's not that I'm indifferent, it's that I don't understand, Fabian shrugged. Look at their numbers this time, at least 10 warbands, 10,000 space marines. Do you know why? Lynn shook her head. Although he knew that the Dark Angels were the first legion and had always been large in scale, it was indeed a bit exaggerated to mobilize such a large force for just one Calcassar. Because they suffered a great loss at Randon's hands, Fabian lowered his voice, though they were the only two in the passageway, it happened a few years ago. The Empire encountered the Randon at its outpost on Adwix Maurice. The Randon were reportedly expanding at the time, while the Empire was on the rise during the Great Crusade, making conflict inevitable. The First Legion, as the main force, bore the brunt of the attack and engaged Randan in battle. The battle was won, but the losses are said to be, this number. He held up his index finger, making a 5. 500. Lynn guessed. 5,000, Fabian said gravely, at least 5,000 brothers. Although the official battle report stated that a strategic victory was achieved at great cost, inside sources say that the battle was fought, in a strange way. Randan's aliens have bizarre technology, stronger Shinik abilities, and a bunch of weapons we still don't fully understand. Lynn's heart skipped a beat. Randan. Of course he knew that name. In Warhammer lore, this is a super alien civilization that the Empire barely managed to suppress after 3 large-scale campaigns. If the Tau Empire is young but has enormous potential, and the orcs are resilient and unkillable, then Randan is ancient, powerful, and exceptionally vengeful. According to the original timeline, the war between the Empire and Randan would have lasted a long time, with casualties reaching astronomical levels. A meat grinder. He murmured. I thought to myself that it would be best to avoid this place in the future, I couldn't afford to get involved in this mess. What did you say? Fabian didn't hear him clearly. I said, it's indeed unusual for so many Astartes to die, Lynn quickly corrected himself, so, their large-scale operation this time is, to get revenge. Partly, Fabian nodded, but another part is because the team's leader this time, Julian van der Rager, was personally handpicked by Macardo. Macardo. Lynn recalled the name, the Emperor's Prime Minister. Yes, the Empire's second-in-command, Fabian said with a hint of awe, but this selection of generals has nothing to do with Randan. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. The previous Grand Master Thran died in the Battle of Carnasbal, and now the First Legion is in a bit of disarray. The Knights of Caliban, who have returned, and the old faction of the Heavenly Army are not on good terms. Grand Master Julian does not belong to any faction, he was personally chosen by Lord Macardo to balance the situation. Lord Leon isn't going to intervene? Lynn asked curiously. Of course we'll manage, Fabian nodded, but Leon hasn't been back long, and integration will take time. The Caliban's chivalrous traditions and the Heavenly Army's combat system won't be easy to integrate. I've heard that there are several factions within the Knights of Light, and the Heavenly Army is divided into the Crown Heavenly Army, the Rock Heavenly Army, the Storm Heavenly Army. It's a very complex situation. After Fabian finished explaining the factional struggles within the First Legion and the background of the new Grand Master, he lowered his voice and added. By the way, do you know why they sent a small team to board our ship beforehand? Lynn shook her head, isn't this just routine liaison and coordination? Yes, but more than that, Fabian glanced at the 1st Legion squad leaving in the distance. Inside sources say this was personally assigned by Grand Master Julian, and its members include both members of the Caliban Knights and the Heavenly Army. On the one hand, before the joint operation, we want their people to personally contact our 13th Army Corps to assess our tactical level and equipment status. After all, they just suffered heavy losses in Randon, and their expectations of their allies will be higher. He paused for a moment. On the other hand, it's probably also to demonstrate the unity of the 1st Legion. Look at the composition of that squad, a mix of knights and celestial soldiers, operating with perfect coordination. This silently tells us, although there are internal divisions, they are united in their actions against external forces. Perhaps Lord Leon and Grand Master Julian are working hard to integrate their efforts, and this team is a window into that process. Lynn listened, completely stunned. It turns out that those scrutinizing gazes and precise, restrained actions were backed by such complex considerations. This was not merely a tactical liaison, but also a political demonstration and a strength assessment. This intelligence is incredibly valuable. Brother Fabian, Lynn said sincerely, it's a shame you're not an intelligence officer with your intelligence skills. It's out of interest, Fabian chuckled. Spending so much time with the ever-victorious army, I've seen and heard a lot. Furthermore, I have good relationships with several Legion communications officers, and we occasionally exchange non-classified gossip. He patted Lynn on the shoulder. Anything you want to know in the future, just ask me. In the Empire, intelligence is the best armor. I made that up myself, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Lynn nodded vigorously. This guy is a real gem. Although he himself was a time traveler, his understanding of the Warhammer lore was basically limited to knowing the major events but guessing the details. Having someone like Fabian, who's well informed, around will make it much easier to avoid pitfalls and mistakes in the future. Chapter 8. Lynn and Fabian had already reached the door of the second briefing room while they were talking. The room was already mostly filled with members of the ever-victorious army. Ernesto de la Cruz stood in front of the holographic projection, adjusting the star map data. Guilliman hadn't arrived yet, but the low pressure of the Primarchs' impending arrival had already silenced the entire room. Lynn and Fabian found a seat towards the back. A few minutes later, the door slid open and Guilliman walked in. There were no flashy entrance effects, no guards clearing the way, just one person. But his towering figure, over 3 meters tall, and the natural aura of authority he exuded caused all the ever-victorious soldiers to stand up and salute in unison. Sit, the Primarch said, walking to the projection and swiping his finger. A holographic model of Carcassonne appeared. The situation is more complicated than we anticipated. The magnified star map reveals the defensive layout of the planet's surface. The twin ring fortresses formed a defensive network, with dozens of heavily armed towers distributed in a ring on the surface. Each city is enveloped in an energy shield, which is connected by energy conduits, forming a planetary-level defense matrix. The origins of Carcassonne's technology have been identified, Guilliman said calmly, but each word carried weight. They unearthed and restored relics from humanity's golden age. A murmur rippled through the briefing room. The golden age. That was the peak of human civilization before the warp storm isolated it. Its technological level far surpassed that of the current empire, and many technologies had even been lost. Not a complete STC, but enough for them to build a defense system far exceeding current imperial standards, the Primarch continued. The orbital platform is equipped with a phase disruption array, capable of interfering with shipboard void shields. The surface shield utilizes self-circulating vacuum zero-point energy extraction technology, making conventional bombing virtually ineffective. Their ground forces are equipped with some kind of energy projection weapon, which has 40% greater penetration power against power armor than current Imperial standard laser weapons. He paused, his gaze sweeping over everyone present. Therefore, a direct assault would be very costly. We need to find the weaknesses in our defensive system. The holographic projection switched, displaying several data nodes highlighted in red. These are the secondary control hubs of the shield's energy conduits, distributed deep underground in different cities. Destroying 3 of them will create an overload gap in the entire planetary defense matrix, lasting approximately 35 minutes, enough time for us to deploy our main force and establish a landing site. De la Cruz then asked, "Sir, what are the defense levels of these hubs?" "Extremely high," Guilliman stated bluntly. "The Carcassal people know the importance of these nodes. Each hub is surrounded by automated defense arrays, garrison troops, and possibly the Golden Age automated defense system." The atmosphere in the room grew even more tense. The automated defense system of the Golden Age, that thing might be even more troublesome than the Randan aliens. "So we need infiltration squads," the Primarch said, his gaze falling on Lynn, "just like we did in Valeris. But this time it's more dangerous, the targets are more dispersed, and we might encounter unknown technological creations." Lynn felt her sweat glands starting to work overtime again. "Lynn," Guilliman called on him, "your previous infiltration performance proves you have the ability to find a breakthrough in complex environments. This time, you'll be leading a 4-person team to investigate and assess the feasibility of Hub 4. If conditions permit, carry out the sabotage. If the defenses are too strong, mark the location and withdraw, awaiting further instructions." "Yes, sir," Lynn rose to accept the order, his inner monologue already flooding the screen. "Again. I just got new gear." The name Hydropower 4 sounds ominous. "Your squad members have been assigned," De la Cruz said, pulling up the roster. "Besides Fabian, there are 2 more, the think tank director, Cassius, an expert in psychic concealment and counter-technology detection, and pharmacist Gallo, specializing in toxin analysis and biochemical protection." Lynn looked into the room and saw a warrior wearing power armor adorned with Chinook runes nodding slightly, with a faint blue light swirling behind his visors. The other person was carefully inspecting the medical kit and sampling equipment around their waist, their movements meticulous. "They're all new faces, which is good, it saves me from having to explain too much. The First Corps will also send reconnaissance teams to oversee the other 2 hubs," Guilliman added. "Their operations may intersect with ours. De la Cruz, you're in charge of coordination and communication, but remember, the First Army has its own operational logic, don't interfere excessively." "Clear." "The mission briefing details have been uploaded to your data panels," the Primarch concluded. "In 72 hours, we will enter near-Earth orbit around Calcasol. Until then, complete all preparations and dismiss." The victorious soldiers rose to salute, and only after Guilliman left did the oppressive atmosphere in the room ease slightly. Fabian leaned over and patted Lynn on the shoulder. "Partner, we're teaming up this time. Both Kassir and Garo are highly skilled. Kassir's Chinook shielding allows us to become invisible to sensors, while Garo is a mobile laboratory, he's said to be able to detect hundreds of toxic gases." Lynn looked at his new teammates. Kashwar approached, his voice calm and collected. "According to preliminary detection, there's a strong technological aura emanating from Nexus Area 4, possibly residual energy from Golden Age equipment. It is recommended to carry anti-syllable shielding devices." Gallo handed over a small scanner. "Captain, I've pre-programmed a biohazard scanning protocol for unknown technological creations. This will trigger an immediate alert if we encounter any biochemical contamination or nanomechanical threats." Lynn took the scanner, feeling a little more at ease, at least her teammates were professional. "All right," he shoved the data pad into the storage slot on his thigh. "I haven't even had a chance to warm up Maya before it's time to get back to work." Flexible Tactics Training Course, second session begins. This week's topic: how to raid a base in the Golden Age relics without getting roasted by the automatic defense system. Fabian asked curiously, "What did you say?" "It's nothing," Lynn smiled. "Let's go to the armory. I need to bring a lot more EMP grenades this time. Also, Fabian, could you tell me some gossip about the other legions on the way? Like, I heard there's this guy named Abaddon, one of the Primarch Horus's men. How do you know him? Fabian asked in surprise. Rumor has it, Lynn said without batting an eye, I've also heard, that guy's a fierce fighter, could he be a clone of Horus? Hey! Fabian gasped. Where did you hear such a sensational rumor? I've never heard of this before, brother, tell me in detail. Lynn was spouting nonsense with a straight face when he caught a glimpse of Cassius shaking his head slightly, while Garo looked down at the scanner. Lynn ignored the helpless yet yearning look in their eyes. Anyway, this is 30K. The shadow of chaos has not yet enveloped everything, and some topics can still be discussed as jokes. At least there are relatively few people with mental illnesses around here, so they won't suddenly fall ill and report you. The four walked forward down the corridor, while outside the window, the grey-blue star Calcasar slowly rotated. Lynn touched the bandages in his pocket and then pressed the undying cockroach badge on his chest. System, he thought to himself, I'll set the fun factor mission objective high this time. I feel, it's going to be a lot of fun. System, received main quest Golden Relics and Automatic Defense has been released. Fun value target, 800. If the Golden Age technology sample is successfully retrieved, the reward is 10 You Can't See Me potions, effect, grants 30 minutes of absolute invisibility after drinking, making you undetectable, unless you accidentally do something malicious. Lynn stopped in his tracks. Recycled samples? The Primarch only mentioned investigation and sabotage, not taking anything. But the system was already humming a little tune, clearly ready to watch the show. Fine, Lynn resignedly continued walking, since I'm already here. I'll just treat it as a deep archaeological tour of the Warhammer universe. Hopefully, this time I won't end up bleeding profusely again. Although he knew that this hope would most likely be dashed. After all, this is Warhammer. With this setup, he muttered under his breath, it would be a miracle if it didn't trigger a hidden level. Fabian, what are you muttering to yourself about again? Lynn, I said, this mission is definitely going to be very exciting. At least in terms of excitement, the Warhammer universe has never disappointed him. Chapter 9. The Surface of Carcassar. Lynn crouched in the shadow of a weathered rock pillar. The power armor's environmental sensors indicated an outside temperature of -20 degrees Celsius, a wind speed of level 7, and trace amounts of radioactive dust. The standard no visitors package. Entrance number 4 of hub confirmed, Fabian's voice rang out in the communication channel, tinged with a bit of static. The mine entrance shows signs of recent activity, tire tracks, depth analysis, the load was considerable, and transportation was frequent. Lynn adjusted the focus of his eyepiece and looked at the dark hole 200 meters away. It was originally an abandoned rare metal mine, but now temporary lighting equipment and surveillance cameras have been set up around the entrance. 2 guards dressed in bulky environmental suits were pacing back and forth at the entrance, their energy rifles old-fashioned but absolutely deadly. Cashier, the results of the Chinook scan? Lynn asked in a low voice. There was a few seconds of silence on the communication channel, followed by the calm voice of the think tank director. A strong aura of technological energy was detected deep within the mine, and its energy characteristics match those recorded during the Golden Age. But besides that, there's interference, some kind of anti-psychic field, like a deliberately set up barrier. Can it be broken through? It will take time, and it might trigger an alarm. Kassirer paused. But I detected periodic fluctuations in the energy field, with a decay window of about 21 seconds every 17 minutes. Lynn smiled, though no one could see it through the mask. Then let's wait for the window, Gallo, and analyze the surrounding environment. Pharmacist Gallo's voice always carried an academic rigor. Air samples showed a high concentration of inert gas, possibly to prevent equipment oxidation. The dust on the ground contains nanoscale metal fragments, presumably from wear and tear caused by automated machinery. It is recommended to activate the fully enclosed mode upon entry to avoid inhaling unknown particles. Okay, Lynn gestured, proceed with the plan. Fabian, you're in charge of dealing with those two by the door. Cashier, disable the surveillance signal as soon as the window of opportunity opens. Gallo, come inside with me. Remember, the primary objective is reconnaissance, avoid taking action if possible. 17 minutes later, the instant Casher announced the start of the window, Fabian peeked out from behind the rock pillar. Instead of using a bomb gun that would be too loud, he drew two matte finish combat daggers from his side. Seconds later, the two guards collapsed to the ground, their environmental suits around their necks precisely cut open without even touching the alarm button. Clean and efficient, Lynn praised, leading his team toward the mine entrance. The inside of the mine was more spacious than I had imagined. The man-made tunnel is 5 meters high, large enough for small vehicles to pass through. The walls are inlaid with crystals that emit a cold white light at intervals. It wasn't the lighting beads commonly used by the Empire, but some kind of self-luminous mineral, whose light was eerily stable. Golden Age lighting technology, Garo recorded as he scanned. This crystal is only described theoretically in the Imperial database. It's said to be able to emit light continuously for thousands of years without decaying. Lynn touched the wall, it felt warm and smooth. If we took a few pieces of this back, we could sell them for a good price, right? Strictly speaking, all relics of the Golden Age belong to the Empire, Cassius cautioned. Unauthorized? Just kidding, Lynn interrupted him, let's move on. The deeper you go, the more obvious the artificial traces become. The tunnel walls were gradually replaced by smooth alloy plates, and the remains of the track system appeared on the ground. The technological aura in the air grew stronger and stronger, and even Lynn, a non-psychic, could feel a sense of oppression. The road forks ahead, Fabian stopped. All three paths show signs of human activity. Lynn glanced at the scan image on his tactical goggles. The three channels lead in different directions, with the middle one exhibiting the strongest energy response. We'll split up. Fabian and Kassir will go to the left, Garo to the right, and I'll go to the middle. Meet here in 45 minutes, regardless of whether anything is found. Captain, there are risks involved in acting alone. Gara hesitated, then stopped herself. I have experience, Lynn patted his breastplate, and I need to conduct thorough reconnaissance of that main passage. Don't worry, if you can't beat me, you can run away. The three exchanged glances and finally nodded in agreement. After all, Lynn's record in Volaris speaks for itself. Although the process is abstract, the result is indeed effective. After they parted ways, Lynn stepped into the middle passage alone. Almost the instant he stepped in, the system's bullet comments in his mind suddenly became active. High-value target detected, a complete sample of the Golden Age energy core, 87% preservation, is located 500 meters ahead. Environmental analysis, the area has an automatic defense system, but the energy supply is unstable and can be utilized. Recommendation, sneaking in through the left-hand ventilation duct, avoiding the ground pressure sensor. Lynn's eyes lit up. A core energy sample? If we brought this back, let alone the original, even Mars would probably send us a thank you letter. Following the system's instructions, he found a hidden ventilation opening, removed his shoulder armor, a move he was becoming increasingly adept at, and slipped inside sideways. The inside of the pipe was covered with a thick layer of dust, but it was still barely passable. After climbing for about 500 meters, a grid-like exit appeared ahead. Through the grid, Lynn saw a vast underground space. A hollow sphere, about 3 meters in diameter, floats in the center of the room. Its surface gleams like liquid metal, and countless tiny streams of energy flow through it, emitting a low hum. At its center, a square, block-shaped metal block, about the size of a soccer ball, slowly rotates, enveloped by the flow of energy. This is the energy core of the Golden Age. Even just looking at it, you can feel the terrifying energy it contains. Various analytical instruments were arranged around the sphere, and several technicians in protective suits were busy at work. Further out, there was a ring of automated defensive turrets, their muzzles slowly rotating in sync with the scanning beam. Sample recovery. Lynn licked his lips. System, do you have a plan? Option 1, robbery, success rate 12%, survival rate 3%. Option 2, clever takeover. Utilize the periodic fluctuations of the energy core to retrieve the sample during the 5-second interval when the defense system restarts. Success rate, 65%, survival rate, 89%. Option 3, abandon, fun value -200. Do we even need to choose? Lynn rolled her eyes. Option 2, what are the specific steps? The system quickly provided a detailed plan. When the energy fluctuation occurs again, the defense system will be briefly offline. At that time, Lynn needs to rush there as fast as possible, get the sample, and then return the way he came. The entire process must be completed within 5 seconds. Lynn crouched down behind the ventilation shaft and waited quietly. 3 minutes. 5 minutes. When the light flow on the surface of the energy core suddenly accelerates, the defensive turret in the room simultaneously emits a beeping sound, and the scanning beam is extinguished. Right now. Lynn smashed through the ventilation grill, landed and rolled, got up and sprinted, all in one fluid motion. The technicians didn't even have time to react, they only saw a blue steel giant flash by like lightning, and the next second, the suspended energy core disappeared from their sight. Enemy attack! Someone finally shouted. But it was too late. Lynn turned and ran back. The red light on the defensive turret reappeared, and the first energy blast grazed his shoulder armor, blasting a large hole in the wall. 5, 4, 3. The system is counting down in your mind. Lynn rushed back to the ventilation shaft and skillfully and nimbly slipped inside. Just as half of his body entered the pipe, Fabian's urgent voice suddenly came through the communication channel. Captain, we've detected something here. There's a large-scale energy reaction deep inside the right passage, like a minefield? Very similar to the one in Volaris. Damn it, of all times. Lynn could hear rapid footsteps outside the room. Clearly, the guards had been alerted. He gritted his teeth, abandoned the idea of continuing to explore, and crawled back while still holding the container. All troops retreat, he ordered over the communications channel. Assemble at the original rendezvous point, the enemy has detected us. After climbing out of the ventilation duct, Lynn found that the outside was in complete chaos. Chapter 10. Alarms echoed throughout the mine, and squads of fully armed guards were gathering in the central passage. Lynn moved swiftly along the shadows of the wall, occasionally spotting a few guards, only to be met with precise headshots from explosive bullets before they could even fire. 5 minutes later, he met up with the other 3 at the fork in the road. Fabian had a cut on his shoulder, and Cash's power armor bore burn marks from an energy weapon, only Garo was relatively unharmed. What's going on? Lynn asked as he ran. Deep in the right passage is an underground armory, Gara said quickly. It was filled with mines similar to Volaris, but of an older model, with energy signatures, like a Golden Age improved version. They were also found in the left passage, Kassirer added. We found some technical blueprints showing that the Carcassals did indeed repair the Golden Age defensive system, but it seems they only mastered a portion of its functionality. Let's get out of here first. Lynn led the way, rushing towards the exit. The evacuation process is 10 times more exciting than the infiltration. The entire mine's defense system was activated. Automated turrets popped out of the walls, energy barriers rose at the entrances, and hordes of guards pursued and intercepted the attackers. But Lynn's squad displayed amazing teamwork, or rather, they were trained by Lynn's flexible tactics. Fabian was responsible for eliminating key targets, Cassius used sonic interference to disrupt sensors, and Garo laid delayed explosive devices along the way to hinder the pursuers. Meanwhile, Lynn himself, while carrying the energy core sample, used all sorts of unbelievable maneuvers to evade the barrage of fire. "Captain, what's that in your arms?" Fabian finally couldn't help but ask. "Local specialties," Lynn said without changing his expression, "I'll explain when we get back." Just as they were about to break out of the mine, intense gunfire suddenly erupted ahead. Lynn signaled the team to stop and quietly crept around the corner to observe. Then he saw something unexpected. 5 1st Legion soldiers were trapped in a relatively open cave, surrounded by at least 100 Carcassar guards and several automatic turrets that were unleashing a barrage of fire. 2 of the Dark Angels have already fallen, and the remaining 3 are struggling back to back, their dark green power armor covered in wounds. "It's a reconnaissance squad from the Dark Angels," Cassius whispered. "They seem to be surrounded." Lynn frowned. Logically, he should have gone to help, since they were allies. But he had long heard of the 1st Legion's "it's our business, don't interfere" attitude, and now he was holding a hot potato in his arms. Sure enough, when he sent a message through the public channel asking if he needed support, the captain of the 1st Legion squad sounded hoarse, clearly indicating that he was seriously injured. He replied coldly, "The 1st Legion can handle its own affairs. Ultramarines, continue your mission." That was said politely, but the meaning was clear: get lost, don't interfere. Lynn raised an eyebrow. "Okay, then good luck to you." Without any hesitation, he gestured and led his squad to bypass the combat zone via another fork in the road. Fabian hesitated for a moment, but eventually followed. "Captain, is this appropriate?" Gallo asked hesitantly. "They explicitly refused," Lynn shrugged. "Forced relationships are never sweet, and forced help is often met with resentment. Besides, we haven't even finished our own mission yet. Running away with this thing is exciting enough." They eventually emerged from a ventilation shaft on the side of the mine, where the Thunderhawk gunboat was already waiting at the designated coordinates. As he boarded the plane, Lynn took one last look in the direction of the mine entrance. The fighting there had gradually subsided. It was unclear whether the 1st Legion soldiers had broken through, or... He shook his head and closed the hatch. At the same time, at the main fleet of the 1st Legion, Grand Master Julian Van Drago stood before the tactical hologram, the scar on his face extending from his brow bone to his jawline making his already serious expression even more stern and hard. He had been waiting for 4 hours, but the reconnaissance team sent to Hub 3 still hadn't sent back any information. "Grand Master," the communications officer's voice was tense, "the Ultramarines have sent a communication request. It's Lord Guilliman himself." "Take it," Julian said, his voice devoid of emotion. The holographic projection lit up, and Guilliman's figure appeared in the center of the bridge. The 13th Primarch's expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Grand Master Julian, our reconnaissance team has returned with detailed intelligence on Nexus 4. As per the agreement, I will share this intelligence with you." He transmitted a data packet. "Carcassar's defenses are based on relics from the Golden Age, but the restoration is incomplete. We discovered that their energy nodes exhibit periodic decay. Furthermore, they are using a mine system modified from the Golden Age, similar to the one we encountered in Valeris." Yuri listened quietly, his fingers tapping lightly on the tactical table. Guilliman continued, "Given the complexity of the situation, I recommend that we reassess our operational plan, which may require more cautious infiltration and closer coordination." "Thank you for the intelligence, Lord Guilliman," Julian interrupted him, his tone polite but distant, "but the 1st Legion has already obtained the necessary information. In fact, our reconnaissance team has already identified the core structure of Hub 3 and is preparing to launch a precision strike." Guilliman frowned slightly. "Grand Master Julian, Carcassar's defenses are more dangerous than anticipated. A hasty attack could lead to unnecessary losses." The First Legion knows exactly what it's doing. Julian straightened up, his scars gleaming under the light. We will launch our attack within 18 hours and destroy Nexus 3. At that time, the Ultramarines can follow up and expand their gains, if you deem it necessary. These words already carried a clear edge. Guilliman was silent for a few seconds, then finally nodded slowly. In that case, I respect your battle plan. But please keep communication open. The 13th Army Corps can provide support at any time if needed. Communication cut off. Julian turned around and looked out the window at the grey-blue planet. The adjutant cautiously began, Chief Instructor, there's still no news from our reconnaissance team. Shouldn't we prepare for the attack as planned? Julian's voice was icy. The First Legion does not need the charity of the Ultramarines to win. Get the soldiers of each battle group ready. We will use a clean and decisive victory to show everyone that the First Legion has never been weak. The glory of Makurug, Strategy Room.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं, फिल्मोरा है ना?